Welcome back, everyone. I think that's nearly everyone back. Yeah, so hopefully the breakout rooms were worthwhile, kind of not so much experiment, exercise. So we'll just run around each. There was 3 breakout rooms, so we'd run around and let one person from each breakout room kind of report back and just discuss what you discussed. And then Mary McAteer and I have to distinguish between different Marys. Mary McAteer, Katrina, Bernie, Maureen, and Mary Roach, and anyone else can provide discussion on it too. So first off, Treylock's group, which I'm not sure what name I put on it. I think breakout. It doesn't matter. 4. Okay. So Treylock, do you want to share your screen or just chat, whichever suits?
Being honest, it's only now I'm realizing how bad my writing is. I was jotting notes rather than typing. But if it's okay to share with you, so I'll go maybe contribution by contribution. I think we kind of put the 2 questions together really in terms of how the answers came across. But Aoife, who will be doing a round robin later, referred to English foreign language students and trying to use action research as a means to integrate them into the learning. Denise referred to, well, I think the key word was marketization, where schools, perhaps more so in the UK, are under pressure when it comes to inspections and selling, and selling their product, if you like, and league tables, and that there's a conflict there between what values you have as an educator and the idea of trying to get more students into your school, maybe. There was a nice contribution from Bernie on that as well. She referred to Joe Kinsella, and I think another writer as well. So it was nice to get some references there. Maybe Bernie could share those writers again in due course. Colette is working as a program coordinator coordinator of a family resource center. And there's a little bit of a question around evaluating the program. She wants to bring an action research approach, and that's being challenged basically. So there's a job of work there in trying to make her voice and values heard in that process, I think. Kira, and I hope I'm doing okay so far, but Kira works with the PDST, or the support service for teachers in primary languages. And again, the thing that stood out for me there was the sense of trying to provide teachers with the autonomy to develop their practice, but also when teachers are looking for something to put in place, they're looking for guidance, but you also want to try to allow them to develop their autonomy. So a balance is needed there, I think. Bernie referred to that as giving them space to develop their professional identities. I think we sort of moved into question 2 with Bridget, who identified the fact that teachers don't necessarily have much space or professional space to identify their epistemologies or values. And that maybe we've all felt a bit like that at times, that you have to almost get into research or action research in order to notice that you're not actually engaging with the values of the school or your own, for that matter. Again, Bernie contributed well there. And we were very lucky to have Bernie to bring that expertise to the conversation, I thought. Catherine made a very interesting point about COVID, which was, yes, maybe the values we have are being compromised a little bit, and that it's important to remind the system that online or blended learning, if you like, is an emergency delivery for now, and that it doesn't necessarily reflect the values that people have day to day. Zaila, and apologies if I'm not pronouncing, Zayla maybe, is an in-service teacher educator, but working with in-service teachers at the moment. She figured that actually values can be transferred easily. So not only can the educator share values with the teachers, but that it works in reverse as well. And finally, Denise raised the question of, well, how much action research is actually being discussed in third level colleges? And I think there was a discussion around that some, but not necessarily so deep that it's to do with reflective practice really, or self-study. Bernie questioned that. And yet, Eve, I think, referred to the fact that it is going on in certain colleges such as DCU and Freble. So I think that's about all I have to contribute. So Gurmina Mahagav.
Perfect. And was there any questions or thoughts that people had from that group that you'd like, or questions you'd like to pose to the panel? I'll call them. If not, we can move on to the next group anyhow. Also, I point out the chat window. Please feel free to comment, or if someone has questions. So might move on to breakout room number 5. So that was the group with Mary Roach and Katrina. I'm not sure who wants to report back on that, or.
I said I'd act as secretary, but I didn't realize I should be typing into the group document. I have notes. Meg has succinctly put them into the Google Doc, and I can read from that in a moment. We kind of went with question 2 first, and Jack opened up the discussion by trying to examine that issue of relation and relationality. And Jack, if I misrepresent what you say, jump in and contradict me, but talked about how the example given by Mary brought him right back to his own research way back as a science teacher, when he turned the video camera on himself and realized he was a living contradiction, and then referred to Buber and referred to Thayer Bacon as people who explored and exposed that idea of relationality. He also had a question about Mary's use of the remark that Mary meant that she's not that convinced there is any such thing as real objectivity. Citing Popper, he talked about the subjectivity and the objectivity and the need for testing that. Jack, you'll be better at that. But he didn't want people going away with the idea that perhaps there is no such thing as objectivity. Katrina talked about how when we explore our values and use them as our criteria, I think I'm saying this correctly, Katrina, because I was so busy listening, I forgot to write. But when we investigate those issues, that becomes a way of trying to resolve these relational aspects. Aoife talked again about relationship and relationality and the tangible, wicked problem of trying to do research in schools, where schools are now overwhelmed with new, I'm sure Treylock as a principal will relate, with all this new stuff that's coming down the line about sanitizing and bubbles and keeping people apart and masks and etc. etc. From Aoife's point of view, coming in then and trying to do my research in a school, there's a huge dilemma and a sense of guilt around that, because you're trying to have respect for people in schools, but you're also trying to have respect for your research process. But Jack's big question kept coming back to the legitimacy of the second question, which was, have we established a we? There were 10 of us in the room. Have we generated a we? And, you know, what is that? What is that we? And who is that we? And what are the problems of that we? In order to contribute to the generation of knowledge. I think I'm right in saying that, Jack. You might be better able to articulate that, but I'll fly through the other people, because we went back to what the wicked problems were. Louise talked about trying to justify within her university, constantly being asked if she's doing autoethnography and trying to constantly justify the form of written representation of her research, saying I'm not doing a distinct standalone lit review or whatever. Trace talked about, again, the difficulty in, first of all, as a very raw beginner at this, how do I establish who I am as an identity and what are my values, trying to articulate that. Emer, again, contributed on the competition between the values I hold and the values of other people, and how do I reconcile all that in a culture that is focused on accountability and performative goals, and how those sort of product orientated goals impact on my process of research. Lydia talked about trying again to navigate the values of others and how she's coming to realize how our values are impacting on who we are as teachers, how we work, how we act. And then Marie asked, how do people find a way of navigating and negotiating a way of working with others when we have all these competing understandings of what the values are, and maybe how sometimes we can project, am I right in this, Marie, how we can project what we assume are the values of others, which may not be accurate, is what I'm, yeah, and we were just getting into that when the time went out. But I think Jack's question is a really, really valid one for us as NERI, as he said himself, for us as NERI going forward, this could be a 5-year project. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mary. And I should have said thank you very much to Trailock as well for reporting back on their group. Both were very interesting. Apologies for not saying it at the time, Trailock. Has anyone any comments or points they'd like to either support or tease out with what Mary has said, or indeed what Trailock had introduced previously? See, Jane, you're saying there about degree in regards to the COVID-19 and the implications is definitely, yeah, a challenge this year. Everyone's very quiet.
I would really like to invite Jack at some point when everybody has given their feedback to come back to that question, because I think it's really, really a good question. Okay,
perfect. Yeah, maybe we'll hear back from the last group. And so I think Maureen, you were in that group. I'm not sure who wants to feedback to the.
Yes,
I said I'd be secretary there.
Yeah. So want to do talking, yeah.
I'll try and share my screen. I don't know if I can.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Can you see that?
Yeah, it's starting. Yeah, that's it. Great.
Okay, I just need to scroll down. So, oh no, I'll make that full screen. So what came up first in our group was about access for students with additional needs, that in the move to online, the big rush to online, that we have to be careful not to lose the human connection, you know, in because that's extra important for learners with additional needs, to have that human contact, like having a mentor or having an actual person rather than looking with a screen. That came up a couple of times in conversation about the change from being with people to being with a screen. It's not something we as teachers take to very naturally. So then I was saying about in my job share role that it's a perfect chance every day to do action research, because I have to take notes on my daily practice for my job share partner, who then takes notes on her daily practice, which I have to read. And over the space of, we've been doing it, this is our 2nd year now, and we've got very comfortable with saying, well, I value this, this is a value, this is something I believe in, or this is something that I don't believe in, and we've wasted time doing this, it's not working for the child, let's find something else. Then, yeah, and I suppose COVID has been a wake-up call, really, in a way. For me, I was saying that as a teacher, not being able to go to school, it felt like, I don't know, being a hen that couldn't lay an egg. It was just completely unnatural situation to be in, and made me really examine, why am I a teacher? What am I doing? And realize that it really is part of who I am, and our identity and our job is, yeah, a lot wrapped up in that. Then we talked about the overlap between beliefs and values, and do we use these as interchangeable terms, our beliefs or our values, that beliefs might be religious beliefs to some of us. And then there was a question around how we use those words. Satira, I think her name is, talked about the blessings of COVID, that it was a huge opportunity in her experience for coaching and encouraging other teachers to document their pedagogy during pandemic. So it gave teachers a very real understanding of the purpose of action research and a living experience of it, learning through trial and error and sharing what they learned. And she shared that her values of never giving up and continuously wanting to improve ourselves were values that she saw come out during that time. Shamie pointed out that values aren't always a good thing, and that this might need further interrogation, that we often, when someone talks about values, we think it's something very good and positive. He also noted huge positives in practices like bringing kids outdoors and having a no homework policy for the first few weeks back to school, that these are all practices that have come up through the COVID experience and that are enriching to the learning of children. Sorry, I have teenagers in the background that don't understand I'm on a call at all. Irene then said about she has noticed the increase in collaboration and collegiality, sharing of resources that's happening between teachers now that wouldn't have happened in the past. And Seth then brought us back to the beliefs and values part again, saying that something like holding a religious belief of kindness to all, that impacts how we would work with people, that we believe kindness is a value that we'd hold dear. So that's kind of all I managed to manically type up while the other people were talking. So
that's absolutely terrific, Siobhan. Thank you very much. Anyone got any questions or comments they'd like to share?
Yeah, I think two big questions came up for us that we didn't actually get and sort around during that session. Was that whole thing about the overlap, or is there, between religious beliefs or beliefs maybe and the values that we hold as action researchers? And the second one was Shamie's question: how do we know that our values, how do we, how can we be sure that they're good or for the flourishing of humanity, as Jack would say? So I think there are two questions we need to look at.
Yeah, brilliant points made, and that's very true too. Just touching on the point made by Shamie, our values aren't always necessarily good, or can sometimes impede development as well.